Fourth Life. I was born in Rome in 1504. As a child, I contracted polio, after which my right leg was withered and small. My pride caused me to hide it under a long cloak. I lived with a chip on my shoulder, certain that others saw my weakness and judged me for it. Additionally, I was the illegitimate daughter of the future Pope Paul III. I felt entitled despite the fact my parents were not married. It was common for popes to have many consorts. I judged people, assuming I knew their opinions of me. All the while, I felt them to be beneath me due to my father's position. My mother and I frequently traveled to the apothecary, where we purchased my polio medicine. A man named Armando owned and operated the pharmacy with his son Giovanni, who was just a few years older than me, at 18. Giovanni was friendly, but I couldn't allow myself to fraternize with the likes of him. He was just the son of an apothecary owner, not a pope's son or royalty. Every visit, Giovanni attempted to make small talk, and I avoided him. What if he saw my leg and realized I wasn't perfect? One day he was speaking kindly to me, showing interest in my well-being, forcing me to have conversation with him. I spun around to face him and announced myself to be Katrina Rosetta Carlotta Farnassi. Mother shouted out, "Katrina, shush!" I glared at him as though to say, "How dare you look in my direction? Who do you think you are?" 2 weeks passed, and my mother and I returned to the apothecary. When Giovanni greeted us, I turned my head. But I stumbled, and my crutch fell out from beneath my coat, exposing my frailty. I was mortified. Giovanni rushed to my side before I realized I was falling. He caught me, held me, and said,
"There appears to be no weakness in your spirit, even though there is a weakness in your body."
I was incensed. I grabbed my crutch, never bothering to thank Giovanni. He had seen me in my reality. I stomped to the best of my ability out the door and waited for my mother. But Giovanni came out, offering me candy. With a smirk, he said,
"Here's a piece of candy. Maybe it will remove some of your sourness."
I grabbed the candy and turned my back to him, seething. As my mother exited the apothecary, she said to Giovanni, "You know, she's quite taken with you." His response was,
"Oh, it is hard to tell."
So our ritual began. Giovanni would eagerly watch for my return every 2 weeks, placing a stool by the door for me. On the stool, waiting for me, would be a hard piece of cherry candy. I placated Giovanni during the visits. He would extort a response from me each time by simply saying,
"Katrina."
I was coerced to respond, "Giovanni." This continued for 10 more visits. The 10th time my mother and I left the apothecary, I learned that Giovanni had asked for an audience with me. My mother was impressed with Giovanni's impeccable manners. She told him yes. The day arrived when Giovanni was coming to visit with me. We sat in the parlor.
"I have really enjoyed getting to know you at the apothecary,"
He said, "I am not that easy to know, but I've enjoyed my time there too, I guess," I said. He seemed excited by what I had said. I hoped he wasn't getting too ahead of himself.
"You know, your home is very nice,
He said.
and I would enjoy getting to know you even better."
I rolled my eyes. I had just thought I hoped he wasn't moving too fast. "I do not know if you were refined enough for me, but I find you interesting," I said.
"I'd like you to know, I speak Latin, and I studied medicinal chemistry at the university."
Giovanni said. He had caught me off guard. I couldn't help but giggle. I stood up, walked over to my easel, and asked him his opinion of the painting sitting on the easel. Giovanni said he liked the color. "I painted it," I said. Then I sat down. He had to know he wasn't the only one with knowledge.
"I particularly like the steel blue color."
He said. "Oh, why is that?" I asked, like he actually knew something about painting.
"Because, Katrina, it reminds me of the color of your eyes,"
Giovanni said. I felt myself soften. I believed he meant what he said. Then I told him so. My feelings were changing. Could the son of an apothecary owner actually have my attention, Katrina Carlotta Rosetta Farnassi? My mother brought us tea, in my favorite ivory teacups with the gold around the rim. I was surprised when Giovanni inquired about the cups. He asked if it was normal for us to have gold painted on a cup for drinking. I explained that it actually was gold and not paint. He apparently had never owned any of the finer things in life. I felt it the right opportunity to ask Giovanni his intentions for us. He responded with,
I was never sure there was an us.
Then he started to explain his plan for our future. It included his inheriting the apothecary as a means to support us. I informed Giovanni that I was never quite sure either there would be an us. Remember, I am not completely whole, I said.
I believe you have 2 blue eyes,
He said. I don't believe a man would want a woman with a withered leg. Giovanni quickly said,
I believe it was those fire in those blue eyes that I first noticed.
My response was, I first noticed the laughter in your eyes. Then I noticed the strength in you when I fell in the apothecary and you caught me. You were also very persistent. Giovanni and I were married in 1524. The evening of our wedding, my new husband carried me over the threshold into our new apartment, which had been prepared for us. My eyes first noticed the dining room where the table was set for 4. I saw my favorite ivory teacups with gold around the rim. I was elated to see fine china and silver in my new home. I had so hoped the niceties I had grown accustomed to would follow me somehow to my new life. In the bedroom, I stopped in amazement. Giovanni appeared to be as surprised as I was. The bedroom was adorned with a wood-carved 4-poster canopy bed draped in silk. I was thrilled, speechless. Giovanni said he had not been responsible for decorating the bedroom. We would later learn that my mother and Cardinal Farnassi, my father, were responsible for our lavishly decorated bedroom. Over the years, Giovanni worked long, hard hours to keep our home, tending to my wants and needs. He understood I was used to the finer things in life. We had our first child the year after we married, a daughter. 2 more daughters followed. When Giovanni took over the apothecary, we discussed my needs for our home. I had long felt my wishes and desires were slow to materialize. Giovanni was becoming angered. He was losing patience with me. One day when our daughter Gabrielle was about 4, she walked into the dining room table, knocking off one of the gold-ringed teacups. It shattered into pieces. Gabriella! That teacup cannot be replaced, I shouted. She cried uncontrollably. Giovanni came to comfort Gabriella immediately.
Katrina!
He said to me,
It's just a teacup. If you want, I can work even longer hours to buy you another teacup. But you will miss me when I'm gone.
I shot him a look that could kill. I spun around in anger, losing my balance as my crutch gave way again. Giovanni was there to catch me, once more, as he always had been.
Katrina, I will always be there for you when you fall,
He said.
This won't be the only time one of your girls will fall and need you to catch them. They are just little girls.
Giovanni's words touched me. I felt ashamed. I understood his words and their importance. I crawled across the floor and over to my daughter. I comforted her and knew I had somehow changed. This was my daughter, my love, more important than any teacup.
Before our next Christmas, unbeknownst to Katrina, I visited her mother. I asked where to buy more gold-rimmed teacups. That's when she told me that when Katrina was a child of 4, she too had broken a gold-rimmed teacup. So she already knew where to purchase several more just in case of another emergency. She had purchased 8 originally, given us 4 as a wedding present, and still had 3 gold-rimmed teacups.
My mother lovingly advised Giovanni to take the last 3 teacups should we decide to bring additional children into the world. The early lessons Giovanni and I learned with the gold-rimmed teacups strengthened our marriage. Those lessons taught me the importance of my husband and why I was originally drawn to him. I loved my children and my husband for who they were and not for what they could bring to me. That had been conceded. They were not material items, wealth, or possessions, but my loves. Giovanni and I had 3 more children after the teacup incident, another daughter and 2 sons. My husband had shown me unconditional love when at times I probably did not deserve it. I grew from the love he showed me and found peace and contentment I had not known before. I learned to forget my polio. It did not define me. I learned not to be so self-centered or conceited. I had allowed my position, my polio, and my wealth to bring out the conceit in me constantly. I assumed people judged me for my disease and kept them at bay, when in fact I was judging them. Giovanni had never seen my disability. He loved me for myself, not for what I had and not for who I was. We enjoyed each other in a long, wonderful marriage. Love took over where conceit and entitlement once lived.
Many lessons are learned from this past life, which Isabella has revealed to us. We are not defined by our illnesses or circumstances. That is vanity. Possessions are just things and of no importance. You believe you are entitled. Never allow another person to own who you are. You cannot be owned. Teach your children what is important in life, and love is the most important. Think of others first, not yourself. Learn to love completely without judgment. Judgment is God's alone.
Good night, Giovanni.
Good night, Katrina.